In this video, you will learn about 10 critical mistakes people make with onions, often without realizing that these errors can put their well-being at serious risk. Although onions are widely known as a natural remedy, they can become extremely dangerous when used incorrectly. From severe inflammation to the worsening of chronic conditions, the consequences can be serious. Watch until the end to avoid potentially irreversible outcomes. This video is going to be incredibly informative and helpful. If you want to take control of your health like a pro, give it a like, and let's get started. Mistake 1. Eating raw onions when you have a high temperature or fever. When body temperature rises above 37.5 degrees Celsius, 99.5 degrees Fahrenheit, the body is already under extreme stress. The heart beats faster, breathing becomes more rapid, and the immune system directs all its resources toward fighting the infection. At this point, it is important not to add more strain with additional stimulants. Raw onions, despite their health benefits, stimulate blood circulation, dilate blood vessels, and speed up metabolism. Under conditions of high temperature, this can cause the fever to increase even more. The body may overheat, and the cardiovascular system becomes overloaded. This is especially dangerous for elderly individuals and those with cardiovascular disorders. Excess stimulation can lead to rapid heartbeat, seizures, a sharp spike in blood pressure, and even a stroke. Medical professionals strongly advise avoiding raw onions whenever body temperature exceeds 37.5 degrees Celsius, 99.5 degrees Fahrenheit, to prevent putting the body at greater risk. Mistake 2. Eating onions when living with chronic kidney failure. The kidneys serve as the body's primary filtration system. In cases of chronic kidney failure, their function becomes impaired, leading to a buildup of toxins, waste products, and excess minerals in the bloodstream. One of those minerals is potassium. Onions, especially when raw, contain a significant amount of potassium. For a healthy person, this is usually not an issue. However, for someone with reduced kidney function, it can pose a serious threat. An excess of potassium in the blood can lead to a condition known as hyperkalemia, which causes the heart to function irregularly. Signs of hyperkalemia include weakness, numbness in the limbs, and abnormal heart rhythms. In more severe cases, it may result in ventricular fibrillation or even a complete stoppage of the heart. Older adults are particularly vulnerable since kidney function tends to decline with age. That is why people diagnosed with chronic kidney failure must carefully monitor their potassium intake and avoid consuming large amounts of onions without first consulting a healthcare provider. Mistake 3. Eating large amounts of onions while taking blood-thinning medications. Onions contain active sulfur-based compounds that significantly affect blood clotting. In moderate amounts, these compounds can be beneficial in helping prevent blood clots. However, when combined with anticoagulant medications such as aspirin, warfarin, or clopidogrel, the effect on blood thinning can be greatly intensified. The blood may become so thin that even a minor injury or tiny tear in a blood vessel can lead to substantial internal bleeding. The danger is that such bleeding can occur silently, for example in the stomach, intestines, or even in the brain. Symptoms such as sudden weakness, dizziness, vomiting with traces of blood, black stool, or loss of consciousness often appear only when the situation has already become critical. This risk is especially high among older adults, whose blood vessels tend to be more fragile and whose metabolism slows down with age. That is why people who take anticoagulants need to avoid consuming excessive amounts of onions in any form, and should always speak with their doctor before making any dietary changes. Mistake 4. Eating fried onions when you have high blood pressure. Fried onions, while flavorful and aromatic, place a heavy burden on the cardiovascular system, especially for people with hypertension. When onions are fried, they absorb fats and form toxic compounds due to the high cooking temperatures. These substances can increase inflammation in the blood vessels, reduce their elasticity, and trigger sudden spikes in blood pressure. After eating fried onions, someone with high blood pressure may experience symptoms like a rapid heartbeat, hot flashes, headaches, and discomfort in the chest area. In more serious cases, this can lead to a hypertensive crisis, a dangerous condition where blood pressure reaches critical levels, increasing the risk of stroke or heart attack. Older adults and individuals with impaired cerebral circulation need to be especially careful. In such cases, a sudden rise in blood pressure can multiply the risk of a stroke. That is why doctors strongly recommend avoiding fried onions and choosing boiled or stewed onions instead, particularly for those over the age of 60. Mistake 5. Eating onions on an empty stomach. Raw onions have a powerful stimulating effect on the gastrointestinal system. They activate the production of gastric juice and increase the secretion of hydrochloric acid and digestive enzymes. When onions are eaten on an empty stomach while the stomach is still empty, the acid begins to act aggressively on the stomach lining. In a healthy person, this may lead to heartburn, a burning sensation, and belching. However, for people with gastritis, high stomach acidity, or peptic ulcers, this habit can be especially harmful. Onions irritate the already inflamed lining, intensify the inflammation, cause sharp pain, and may trigger an ulcer to open or cause stomach bleeding. This situation becomes even more serious in older adults whose stomach lining naturally becomes thinner and more sensitive with age. Repeated irritation on an empty stomach can lead to chronic digestive problems that may require long-term and complex treatment. That is why doctors recommend eating onions only after a meal and in combination with other foods that can help buffer their harsh effects. Mistake 6. Eating meals with onions late at night. Many people do not realize how strongly food can affect the quality of sleep, and onions are no exception. The active compounds found in onions stimulate blood circulation, increase heart rate, and mildly activate the nervous system. While these effects can be beneficial during the day when the body needs energy, they become harmful in the evening. When meals containing large amounts of onions are eaten for dinner, a person may experience unpleasant symptoms such as rapid heartbeat, internal restlessness, a sensation of warmth throughout the body, and increased anxiety. These reactions interfere with the body's ability to relax, making it harder to fall asleep and reducing overall sleep quality. Older adults are especially sensitive to such stimulation due to naturally reduced nervous system regulation with age. As a result, they may toss and turn during the night, wake up frequently, and feel exhausted, irritable, and drained in the morning. To avoid these issues, experts recommend not eating onion-heavy meals in the late afternoon or evening, and especially not within 3 to 4 hours before going to bed. It is better to enjoy onion dishes at lunchtime or during an early dinner. Mistake 7. Eating onions when dealing with liver or gallbladder conditions. Onions are powerful stimulants of bile production. Under normal circumstances, this is a helpful process. Bile aids in digesting fats and supports overall digestive function. However, in people with liver issues or gallstones, stimulating bile flow can become extremely dangerous. If even a small stone is present in the gallbladder, increased bile secretion can cause it to shift. As the stone moves through the bile ducts, it can get stuck and block the flow of bile, triggering a sudden and severe attack known as biliary colic. The pain from such an episode is often intense and cramping, radiating to the back and right shoulder. It is usually accompanied by nausea, vomiting, chills, and sometimes a fever. The skin may take on a yellowish tone due to bile buildup. These attacks require immediate medical attention and, in many cases, emergency surgery to remove the gallbladder. Such complications are especially common in older adults whose metabolism slows down with age, causing bile to thicken more rapidly. That is why anyone with suspected liver or gallbladder problems should avoid stimulating bile flow with onions, garlic, fatty foods, or heavily seasoned dishes. Mistake 8. Eating onions when you have gastritis or a stomach ulcer. Onions contain a high concentration of essential oils and sulfur-based compounds that strongly irritate the lining of the stomach. For healthy individuals, moderate onion consumption may not cause harm, but for those with gastritis or peptic ulcers, onions pose a serious risk. In cases of gastritis, the stomach lining is already inflamed and its protective functions are weakened. When onions come into contact with this vulnerable surface, their active compounds can intensify inflammation, causing burning sensations, sharp pain, heaviness in the stomach, and heartburn. With stomach ulcers, the situation becomes even more dangerous. Onions can cause an existing ulcer to expand or trigger bleeding from the ulcer. This may result in vomiting with blood or black tar-like stool, both signs of internal bleeding. Older adults are particularly at risk. As people age, the stomach lining becomes thinner and its ability to heal slows down. Even a single flare-up caused by eating onions can lead to the need for urgent medical attention and long-term treatment. For these reasons, doctors strongly advise completely eliminating raw onions and even lightly cooked onions from the diets of individuals with gastritis or stomach ulcers in order to avoid flare-ups and serious complications. Mistake 9. Eating large amounts of raw onions when you have pancreatic disorders. The pancreas is one of the most sensitive organs in the digestive system. Its main role is to produce enzymes needed to break down food. Onions, especially when raw, strongly stimulate the release of these digestive enzymes. In healthy individuals, this stimulation can help improve digestion. However, in people with pancreatitis or other pancreatic disorders, this stimulation becomes dangerous. A weakened pancreas cannot handle the increased demand, and the enzymes that are supposed to function in the intestines begin to digest the tissue of the pancreas itself. This leads to acute inflammation, causing severe pain in the upper abdomen that often radiates to the back. It may also be accompanied by vomiting, fatigue, and sometimes fever. An acute pancreatitis attack requires immediate hospitalization and intensive treatment. Delaying medical care can result in serious complications, including tissue damage, necrosis in the pancreas, and systemic infection. The risk is especially high for people over the age of 60, as organ function declines with age and the body's ability to recover becomes more limited. That is why anyone with a pancreatic condition should avoid eating raw onions entirely, unless advised otherwise by a healthcare professional. Even small portions can trigger a serious flare-up. Mistake 10. Uncontrolled consumption of onions by older adults with chronic health conditions. After the age of 60, the body becomes especially sensitive to any dietary stress. Even familiar foods like onions can trigger serious disruptions in the functioning of organs and body systems. Many older adults live with chronic conditions such as high blood pressure, diabetes, gastrointestinal disorders, or cardiovascular problems. Because onions have active biological properties, they can make these conditions worse. For example, in people with hypertension, onions can cause sudden changes in blood pressure. In those with diabetes, onions may further lower blood sugar levels, potentially leading to hypoglycemia, a dangerous condition that can result in loss of consciousness. For individuals with digestive issues, raw onions may trigger flare-ups of gastritis, ulcers, or pancreatitis. Onions can also interact with medications. They may intensify the effects of anticoagulants, blood pressure medications, or drugs used to regulate blood sugar, which increases the risk of severe side effects and unpredictable reactions. That is why older adults are advised to consume onions only in moderation, preferably cooked or stewed, and only after consulting with their healthcare provider. Even the healthiest foods, when eaten without proper control at this age, can lead to serious health consequences and sometimes even threaten a person's well-being. Next, I recommend checking out these videos, and don't forget to leave your likes and comments. I'm looking forward to them.